The story opens with a scene in a hospital room where a man lies unconscious in bed. A wilting flower in a vase can be seen on the bedside table. All of a sudden, some of the petals fall off the stem and onto the sleeping man's face. That's about where his slumber comes to an end because he suddenly jolts up from the bed. His eyes shoot wide open like he just woke up from a horrible nightmare, his face covered in sweat. The young man breathes heavily as he looks around the room frantically and then realizes that he doesn't know where this is. He wonders where he is and instantly realizes that he's been reborn. It's all really confusing for him, so he checks to confirm if he's truly been reincarnated. The protagonist lifts the blanket to take a look at his feet, but is horrified to see that his legs are missing. His legs have been amputated from the knee down, and it's a really big shock that leaves him in tears. The young man is devastated at this point, but then it occurs to him that he doesn't know what the time is either. He squeezes the sheets in rage, wondering what time it is now. His little episode is suddenly interrupted when a ginger-haired girl walks into the room. She calls him her brother and looks really surprised to see him awake. For some reason, she's wearing really skimpy clothes. But that's not the point right now. Tears of joy suddenly run down her face when she realizes that her brother is finally awake. Before the protagonist can even say anything in response, she rushes to him and wraps him in a hug. The young man seems really taken aback, but just stays quiet and lets her embrace him. The girl claims that it's really great that he's awake and then promises to catch the hit-and-run driver who put him in the hospital. The young lady makes this vow passionately and also assures our man that his legs will be healed as well. At this point, the memories start coming back to the protagonist, who finally recalls what happened to him and why his legs are gone. He gets really emotional as he thinks back to the car accident from a year ago that led to all of this. The protagonist was run over by a speeding vehicle and left for dead by the reckless driver. In the blink of an eye, he was turned from the youngest billionaire in the country and the chairman of the Rising Sun International Group to a helpless man. In the flashback scene, we see that Shen was abandoned by the hit-and-run driver until some of his workers found him there. A red-haired lady, in particular, was the one who found him and alerted the others to call an ambulance. Since then, the protagonist has been bedridden, and his life has never remained the same. In another flashback scene, we get to see his earlier days at the hospital when he was still focused on treatment. As a result of this, he was no longer able to run his company, and it didn't take long before he was betrayed. While Shen King was in the hospital receiving treatment, his most trusted friend, Shaon Kai, someone he considered a brother, took the opportunity to seize the company. At first, the guy kept playing the good guy card, but after a while, he decided to show his true colors and betrayed the hero. He even threatened Shen's health to force his sister into marrying him. That was the only way he would keep providing treatment for the bedridden man. His sister had no choice. Unfortunately, Shen saw all of this happening right in front of him, but he couldn't do anything. He was absolutely helpless, and all he could do was yell at Shaon Kai to let go of his sister. That day at the office, Shen was practically lying on the floor helplessly as he watched his former best friend take advantage of his sister. The protagonist tried to make him stop, but the traitor just called him a dog for barking and went on to do as he wished. The poor girl, who had to suffer all this, could only shed tears and beg her brother to save her. But unfortunately, he was just as helpless as she was. Shen King pretty much had everything taken away from him by the bastard Shaon Kai, and all he could do was weep bitterly. Sometime later, a game called Divine Path emerged. It was jointly developed by multiple countries with 100% realism, which pretty much meant that the in-game currency could be exchanged for real money. But because of a very special key point, the character attributes in the game could affect reality. This should have been Shen King's best chance to change his fate, but at the time when the game came out, he was absolutely bankrupt. The protagonist was a penniless cripple, and it doesn't really get any worse than that. Without the ability to spend money, he couldn't obtain good resources at the time, and it was starting to look like he might be stuck in mediocrity forever. He had completely lost the capital to compete with Xiao Tanai in any way at all. And with each passing day, his odds of survival kept getting worse. The treacherous bastard who stole everything from him used the wealth extravagantly in the game and was able to acquire the best resources and attributes. Since the game is famous for affecting reality, everything that Xiao Tanai did in there manifested in the real world, which elevated the traitor to an unrivaled height. As you can imagine, Shen felt that all of that should have been his, and it left him really bitter and angry. With this hatred that had gathered in his heart, Shen came up with a plan to get his revenge on Xiao Tanai for good. He wanted to take everything back from the traitor, so he set a trap and invited his former best friend over. When Xiao arrived, he mocked Shen's place, calling it a broken doghouse, and wondered why he was invited. It turns out that the house had been covered with explosives all around, and Shen had the trigger. He wanted to take Xiao down with him, but the guy just found it all amusing that Shen thought this would kill him. Enraged and desperate, the protagonist detonated the bombs, determined to kill Xiao no matter the cost. And, of course, a massive explosion followed. When the dust settled, Shen was fatally wounded, with all of his limbs gone. This time around, his body had been severed in two by the explosives, with his lower half nowhere to be found. On the other hand, Xiao Tanai was completely unscathed, and the guy just felt sad for Shen. The protagonist couldn't believe his eyes, so the guy made it clear that he's practically invincible with the kind of power he's gained in Divine Path. That being all of the explosives won't be enough to even singe a hair on him. At that point, it was pretty clear that Shen wouldn't survive, so Xiao decided to tell him one more thing before he finally dies. The guy steps on Shen's head, and that was the moment he revealed he was responsible for the car accident and the death of Shen's parents. The twisted man revealed that all those horrible things were his doing, and then went on to taunt the dying man, reminding him that the last bloodline of the Shen family will bear his surname even after all he did. Xiao Tanai let out a villainous laugh after saying that, and it just pushed Shen to tears. Once again, he was horrified that someone he trusted could do something like that. Despite everything, the protagonist was still unwilling to give up, and even after Xiao squashed his head, his spirit still refused to surrender. The flashback comes to an end at this point, and back in the hospital, we see that Shen can now remember everything that happened to him. He's somehow been taken back in time to when he first lost his legs in the car accident. The crippled man doesn't know why he has been reborn, but what he knows for sure is that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. When he looks over at his sister and tells her to stop crying, claiming that he'll just start laughing if she keeps sobbing all over his body, Shen knows that he's been given a second chance. This time around, he is more determined than ever to protect his sister as well as the fruits of his parents' labor. The ginger-haired girl finally wipes her tears and promises to stop crying. Seeing her innocent face, Shen makes a promise to himself that he'll tear that beast Xiao Tanai to pieces, even though he wants nothing more than to destroy the traitor right now. His disability is already in the picture, so he wonders how he can turn things around. As soon as he thinks about this, he remembers that this is about the time when the Divine Path game launched. He also knows that it will take at least a month before people will discover its ability to affect reality, so this is his best chance to turn the tables. Xiao Tanai hasn't taken over his company yet, and he still has access to money since his accounts haven't been frozen yet. So this is the time for him to act fast. His sister notices him frowning, so she asks if it's because his legs hurt, but he doesn't say anything. So she figures that she needs to call the doctor. He stops her before she can run out the door and then tells her he needs something urgent from her. The girl is pretty confused when she hears this, so she asks him what the matter is. To her surprise, he asks her to help him buy a gaming pod, specifically the Divine Path gaming pod. This is quite baffling to his sister, so she asks him again to confirm that she heard him right. Unfortunately, that's about the same time the villain walks into the room, as if on cue. Xiao enters the scene as soon as Shen asks for the gaming pod, and the nosy villain curiously asks him when he started playing games. Shen's sister is excited when she sees the traitor, but the protagonist doesn't let go of her hand suspiciously. Xiao Tanai tries to discourage Shen from getting the gaming pod, claiming that there won't be anyone to run the company if he gets addicted to gaming. Hearing this, Shen just glares at the guy, wondering if he's already being tested. He's not sure what's going on in Xiao's mind, and he definitely doesn't want to reveal his plan, so he claims that he wants to take up gaming since he's now just a cripple who can't do anything else. At this point, it's almost as if Xiao already knows what's going on. The villain talks about the Divine Path gaming pod being released that same day, and since only 100 units are available for now, he reveals that a single gaming pod would cost 300 million. Hearing this, Shen can already tell that Xiao is trying to discourage him, so he reminds the guy that he's still in charge of the company's finances. He makes it clear that he'll get a gaming pod, even if it costs him 30 billion. Seeing how serious Shen is about it, Xiao gives up and agrees to get a unit for him. At this point, it's clear that the traitor is still clueless because he's really happy that Shen will be distracted with the game since he feels that it will make it easier for him to seize the company in the chairman's absence. With this in mind, Xiao promises to have the pod delivered soon, and assures Shen that he will take care of the company with his little sister Tong. The snake tries to get all touchy with the girl, so Shen just pulls his sister away from him and makes it clear to Xiao that Tong will be staying back at the hospital with him tonight. He pulls her close to himself and glares at the traitor for trying to touch his sister with his filthy hands. Seeing this, Xiao Tanai can definitely feel the tension, so he backs off and takes his leave. The traitor goes out of the room and just stands there for a while, feeling really upset. He looks at the siblings through the window and is absolutely furious. Xiao can't believe that the useless killer he hired couldn't do the job and finish Shen off. With this in mind, he just leaves the hospital in disappointment, thinking that he would just use a tanker truck to run Shen over next time. Back in the hospital room, Shen quietly tells Tong to transfer all his money into the game. As you can imagine, this sounds insane to the girl, so she asks him why. But he just tells her not to ask. Shen also wants her to sell all the company's stocks, and this just makes her panic. She's afraid that her brother might be terminally sick or something, so she asks him what's going on. In response, Shen assures her that he's not sick and tells her he just needs to bet big. It's definitely a big gamble, but Tong does as he asks. 3 hours later, we see that he's all suited up and seated in the $500 million gaming pod. The pod is ready, and so is our guy, who is currently on his way to Divine Path. Shen activates the pod, and it only takes a few seconds for him to be transported into the game world. As soon as he's there, it's pretty obvious because he has his legs back. He's so glad that he can move freely again and is impressed by how real the legs feel. Just then, a window pops up in front of him, prompting him to name his new character. So, he names himself Ko Wang. The moment he's done with this, the game system greets him, and then several giant warrior characters appear right in front of him. This is like the welcome menu, and then he's asked to choose his class in the game. Seeing this, he realizes that this is just like his previous life when he had to choose between warrior, mage, ranger, assassin, priest, knight, or summoner. Unsurprisingly, he chooses the same class as he did the last time, since it is the one he's most familiar with. It turns out that the crippled multi-billionaire resonates more with being a ranger, so he makes his selection and is immediately dressed as one. With a cool cap, at this point, Shen is delighted to see that everything is the same as it was the last time, so it's now time for the next step. Just then, another window pops up, informing him that he's triggered a special reward, Elf Bloodline, since he's a VIP user of the gaming pod. So basically, the Elf Bloodline is an epic reward, which grants a born ranger favor from the elves. The epic effect of this reward is that he's bestowed strength and 10% more accuracy, critical rate, and evasion, as well as a 15% increase in his movement speed. That's not the only perk he gets for being a VIP user of the gaming pod, because he also gets a special skill called the Book Reward. This legacy reward helps with weakness detection by identifying the target's weak points. Besides just detection, attacking the weak points will also deal 150% to 200% damage. This skill also consumes 20 mana and has a cooldown time of 120 seconds. All classes can use this skill, and our boy is delighted that it's just the same as before because he's already mastered it in his previous life. As one of the first 100 global VIP users to purchase the gaming pod, he receives congratulations along with one more reward, which is a special exclusive treasure chest. Just then, the shiny box of treasure appears in front of him, and he's taken aback by this because the chest wasn't there the last time. Judging by how it's brimming with power, Shen figures that the most important talent ability must be inside, so he reaches for it. As he's about to touch it, another note appears, revealing that the special treasure chest contains a rare talent ability. To unlock the chest, he's required to first recharge 50 million gold coins. As you can imagine, that's a pretty huge figure, and the protagonist is taken aback by it. He didn't expect to be met with such a huge requirement because that sum is equivalent to 500 million renminbi, which is the official currency of China in this story. Shen King is pretty confused at this point, but after contemplating for a short while, he decides to recharge the 50 million gold coins. After all, if he doesn't spend the money now, then that bastard Xiao Chenai will spend everything later. With this in mind, he just gets pissed and recharges what's required. He is aware that talent abilities are a random attribute that every new player can acquire, and rumor has it that players obtain rarer talent abilities earlier they enter the game. As such, he's already really ahead of his nemesis in this department. In Shen's previous life, he got an additional damage bleeding effect, which helped him immensely in countless battles. The protagonist recharges 500 million gold coins and makes up his mind to spend big in this life because he's determined to get something bigger. A prompt pops up in the form of another window, asking if he wants to open the chest. So he clicks the yes button, and the treasure chest is opened right away to reveal the amazing stuff inside. Shen is blown away when he lays his eyes on the treasure that was in it. That's when we see that he got the incredibly special talent ability to evolve everything. The protagonist is surprised that such a talent even exists, and the look on his face suggests that he's about to go crazy with this skill. Without wasting a second, Shen evolves everything that he can about himself, and it only takes a short while for the evolution to be successful. Everything about him has been significantly improved, so he smiles confidently, quoting a parable about how the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the aureole behind. This major upgrade, Shen begins to doubt that the evolution and divine talents can easily be acquired with 50 million gold coins. The protagonist is a little suspicious, so he opens the skill details to check, and several pages pop up. The first one talks about passive evolution. This one gives 100% chance to upgrade a dropped item by 1 rank, with a 5% chance to trigger intermediate evolution, which upgrades the item by 2 ranks. The next page talks about autonomous evolution. This one provides 100% chance to upgrade any item, tool, skill, or gem by 2 levels, with a 10% chance to upgrade by 3 levels. The cooldown time for this one is 24 hours. Unfortunately, this effect cannot stack with the passive evolution effect. The same effect can only evolve once as well. At first, our guy is pretty confused while reading all this, but after a few seconds he realizes how cool it all is, and a mischievous grin creeps up his face. With his new talent, he instantly evolves the wrappings around his hand and fist into a really cool gauntlet, and when he sees the insane results, he just considers it excellent that his new ability is absolutely game-changing for him. While others are still dropping bronze and silver items, he'll be dropping at least silver, gold items, or even higher from now on. As far as he's concerned, this 500 million he just spent is totally worth it, because with the skills at his disposal now, he can trample everyone beneath his feet. At the moment, his gauntlet is brimming with power and waiting desperately to get some action, so he figures that he'll enter the main game soon and casually kill some monsters so that he can test the power of this new skill with dropped items. While he's thinking about this, it suddenly occurs to him once again that this thing has a cooldown time of 24 hours. As such, he figures that the first evolution is crucial, so he needs to find something with potential and try evolving it so he can see what happens. Shen removes the skill equipment at this point and then gets back to preparing for the game. Once preparations are complete, he moves to the next activity on the agenda, which is entering the actual game. So, he presses the button on the screen to open the game entrance. The portal starts to form, and so he claims that it's time for him to change his fate. Once the portal is completely open, he marches in there with determined strides. Shen walks into the portal, and the scene shifts to a place in the actual game called the Beginner's Village. This is where all the new players first start their journey, so the protagonist is shocked to see a crowd as soon as he gets there. Shen can't believe his eyes, and he's also pretty disappointed because he thought that he'd be among like the first 5 people to buy the game. Seeing that this is the case, our guy simply concludes that there must be many rich folks in this world. While he's still taking it all in, his attention is caught by the players who are desperately chasing chickens to get experience points from them. Others in the game see this and are surprised that killing chickens actually gives experience points, so they dive into action. Once they learn this, our guy just watches them quietly from the back as they go crazy on the farm animals. But he knows more than these newbies and figures that it would even be a waste of his time to stay there and mock them. Shen knows that he needs to seize every second for his first goal, so he turns away from the novices who are busy hunting chickens and gets moving. The protagonist feels that he has more important things to be doing right now, and the first one on his list is defeating the newbie's own boss so that he can get the first kill reward before anyone else can. The scene shifts, and Shen makes his way deeper into the woods, where he suddenly receives a warning message from the system, informing him that he's about to enter the wild monster area. He's told to be careful, but he doesn't have any intention to turn around. He knows that it's dangerous, but he also feels like he needs to quickly kill monsters and level up before any other player realizes what the game is truly about. By getting the first kill on the boss, Shen will be granted extra rewards, which cannot be stolen by other players. As such, he wants to quickly take out monsters and receive rewards. He also knows that preparation is necessary, so he opens his inventory to see what he's got in there that can help him. As soon as he opens it, a look of disdain is plastered on his face because all that he's got in there is a newbie bow and cloth armor. Shen is really disappointed because neither of the 2 items has any evolutionary value at all. This baffles him a bit because he knows that it will be impossible to differentiate them from one another. Moreover, the evolution ability can be used actively once a day, so not using it would be a waste. And this makes him wonder if there is anything with more potential to evolve. Shen thinks about this for a few seconds before he suddenly comes up with a brilliant idea. Seeing that there's really no item he can evolve, he decides that it would be better to simply evolve his elf bloodline. The protagonist does just that, and it turns out to be such a wonderful improvement. Because by the time the evolution is complete, Shen is now left with the bloodline of the Elf King. This boost gives him a few perks. For starters, he's now got strength and empowerment, which gives him an additional 50% hit rate, critical strike rate, attack speed, evasion, and 100% increase in his movement speed. The second enhancement he gets is Life Force, which increases his life limit by 1,000 points, with an added 100 points with each level up. Finally, the third perk he gets is Life Arrow, which simply means that every third attack he strikes is a guaranteed critical hit. Our guy sees his HP go off the roof and is really excited that he can really evolve the bloodline too. Shen finds this really awesome and figures that solo grinding monsters in the new zone shouldn't be a problem at all with these kinds of attributes. His thoughts are suddenly interrupted when he hears a loud howl in the distance. It's so loud that it sends all the birds flying away, and Shen finds this baffling. It turns out to be a level 2 forest wolf with a scar on its face, and the reason it's howling is because it's been cornered by some other players in the game. The big guy in the group steps forward to take on the wolf with his sword, feeling that the creature is not fast enough to escape them. The others in the group advise the forest wolf to give up and die obediently, because the only way they can level up is by killing it. As you can imagine, the wolf doesn't have any intention of surrendering to them, so it just keeps growling. By this time, we see that Shen has arrived. Our guy is quietly watching everything from behind a tree, where no one can see him. After the exchange he just witnessed, he's really surprised that the players are already starting enough to form teams to kill monsters in the beginner phase. Even though team killing decreases the experience points that can be earned from a hunt, it definitely increases safety and odds of survival. It's a good way to go about the game in his mind, but unfortunately, he feels that their outdoor survival knowledge is lacking. This is because wolves are not solitary animals. They move in packs, which means that the gamers are about to be ambushed any time now. Sure enough, some more forest wolves emerge from the bushes around, and the team of warriors didn't see this coming. So, it only takes a few seconds before they're completely surrounded. The ferocious forest wolves then charge at them, and as the wolves rough up the entire team, some of the members are forced to deal with the excruciating pain from the attacks. Even though they won't die in the real world, the pain feedback is extremely realistic. They start screaming and begging to be saved from the savage canine beasts, but none of them can be of any use at the moment. So they just conclude that they'll meet at the respawn point. The entire team is wiped out by the pack of vicious wolves, so Shen decides that it's time to step in. Now, he chants the same parable from before about the man stalking the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. He then shoots a really powerful arrow at the scar-faced forest wolf. The flaming arrow moves out like a missile and hits the great wolf right in the head. The arrow goes right through the wolf's skull, and a message from the system confirms that he just killed the level 2 wolf. His first mission is pretty much complete at this point, so he gets bumped up to level 2. His Elf King bloodline is upgraded, so he gains an additional 100 life points. Shen also gains 10 magic points and 5 free attribute points. Another window pops up informing him that he also just obtained wolf meat. Thanks to the passive evolution, the advanced wolf meat can give him continuous health regeneration. Seeing this, Shen figures that healing items are also essential for solo grinding in the game, so he picks it up and prepares to leave. Just then, he notices the rest of the wolves charging at it. Seeing this, our boy just relishes the challenge. He's already tested the damage, but now he knows that he needs to try other things. Shen turns around and activates his Elf King bloodline. The passive evolution provides a 100% speed increase, and in that moment, a powerful wave of flames engulfs his body. This allows him to blast himself away from the pack. With that single blast, the hero is able to reach another part of the forest in the blink of an eye. He finds it amazing that the Elven King bloodline not only increases damage but also provides a 100% speed boost, making him as fast as wild wolves even without additional equipment. For an archer, speed is crucial, so without the divine talent, growing strong would have been so much harder. Our boy takes a look back to taunt the wolves chasing him, but when he glances back, he's shocked to see that the wolves are no longer chasing him. He practically jumps from one cliff to another so they aren't able to follow him. But he still wonders why they stopped running. The wolves just growl at him from the other side, and he suddenly discovers why they stopped chasing him. A message from the system pops up, informing him that he just entered the buffalo zone. So he realizes that he's now in a higher level area, which has even more dangerous creatures. The massive buffaloes with deadly horns are busy grazing the area, while the wolves reluctantly retreat. Shen knows that these creatures are more dangerous, so he needs to be cautious. From what he remembers, the buffalo zone has level 5 monsters. While he's still thinking of a way in, another gamer calls out to him. Shen turns around in shock, and that's when he sees the 3 characters traveling together. The pink-haired girl, who called him, seems to be the leader of the group. She asks him if he would like to join their team. She informs him that they're preparing to hunt buffalo monsters and asks if he wants to join them, calling Shen handsome for the second time. The The young lady is certain that they are the first to reach this area since the server opened, so she's eager to have new members. Just then, the chubby, green-haired guy in the team reminds her that they can't just let anyone join them. He can see that Shen is still only at level 2, so he feels that letting the protagonist into their team would only slow them down and mean that they have to share even more of their experience points. Hearing all of this, our boy just gives them a blank expression before declining the offer. He tells them to keep grinding and sets off to go somewhere else. Just then, the blue-haired dude in the trio stops Shen, asking him if he's out of his mind. The guy reveals that the next area is even more dangerous, confirming that none of them has even been there before. Even for them, it's too risky, so they feel that Shen shouldn't be going there by himself. But they have no idea who they're actually dealing with. Our hero doesn't look like he has any intention of listening to them, so they try to make him understand. The fat guy asks him if he knows the penalty for dying in the game. In response, Shen just tells them that he doesn't know the penalty, claiming that he's a low-level noob who hasn't died yet. As such, he asks the man to teach him. So the blue-haired warrior in the team steps forward to enlighten him. The guy reveals that Shen would lose all his golden equipment damage if he dies. Even though it's a game, the pain and despair of dying are very real. And the worst part is that all his hard-earned experience points that he's accumulated so far will be cut in half. The blue-haired guy says this with so much seriousness, but Shen doesn't look fazed at all by this little disclosure. He nonchalantly thanks the guy for the heads-up and then bids the so-called pros goodbye, which leaves them really baffled. After Shen leaves them, the pink-haired girl suggests that they bring the solo traveler along with them, feeling that it's too dangerous for him to be alone. But the fat guy tells her not to bother herself. As far as he's concerned, Shen is just an idiot who wants to die, so he feels that there's no point trying to stop him. Our boy continues his journey without looking back, and after walking a pretty long distance, he gets to a point where he finds a dried-up human skull on the ground. He picks up the skull and figures that this must be the place they just warned him about. He's familiar with it already, since he's played the game before. Apparently, this really scary cave with spikes shooting down from the roof is home to the biggest boss in the newbie zone. Shen tosses the skull in excitement, feeling really good that he's the first one here. Our guy takes a look at the sea of skulls and figures that today is probably the day he'd die here. The skull he just throws lands on something, which turns out to be the beast responsible for all the bones in the cave. The creature wakes up, feeling irritated, and that's when we see that it's some kind of giant snake. The beast is like the combination of a frilled lizard and a massive serpent, which explains why it's very hostile. Despite how dangerous this monster is, Shen doesn't look even slightly afraid of it. The snake makes itself taller as it slithers higher up the cave to closely observe the intruder. While the serpent is busy trying to look scary, Shen casually activates his skill for detecting the enemy's weakness. He scans the monster at this point and discovers that it's a level 10 giant snake king. He also spots a mark on the back of the snake's neck, so he realizes that this is the weak point he's been looking for. The system confirms this, and so our boy gets ready for battle. Shen was originally at 200 HP since he's a level 2 character, but thanks to the Elf King's bloodline, he got an extra 1000 HP, which means that he's got 1200 HP, a lot more HP than the Snake King, who currently has only 800 HP. As such, Shen's health bar is now way longer than the boss's, so he's got the advantage here. With this kind of confidence, the hero feels that there's no reason to be scared at all. He takes out his arrow and a really smug grin appears on his face. He draws the arrow and prepares to take the shot. So when the boss snake sees this, it begins to panic. The Snake King sees what's about to happen, so it doesn't waste another second before charging at Shen. The massive beast blasts itself at our boy with the sole intention of killing him, and when Shen sees this, he's just amused by how slow the monster is. At this rate, Shen feels that the Snake King will have a very hard time landing a hit on him. The hero evades the first strike effortlessly and then lands a shot, which hits the snake and takes out 29 HP at once. Shen is pretty disappointed by this because he feels that his attack power is quite low. He expected something higher than this, and since his attack isn't as powerful as he would like, he realizes that the fight might be tougher than he expected. Nevertheless, he's still confident that he'll win, and his speed is still enough to contain the creature. So he figures that this is how he'd handle it. Our hero continues to dodge each strike from the snake, and after a while, he figures that he can just cut the Snake King to death because it's proven to be really slow. He dodges the monster once again and creates some distance between them, which allows him to take another deadly shot. He shoots his arrows and aims for the back of the snake's neck, but that's when he realizes that the creature is cleverly protecting its weakness. This pisses our hero off because he wants to be done with the fight as fast as he can. But then again, he just calms himself down knowing that his Elf King bloodline gives him an attack speed boost. So, he unleashes a barrage of strikes on the monster, and after launching several arrows in the blink of an eye, he's eager to see whose speed prevails between his arrows and the Snake King's tail. To his surprise, the Snake King manages to deflect the first 2 arrows with its tail and doesn't take any damage, but the last one finally hits the weak spot, and this deducts 58 HP from the Snake King. Seeing this, Shen laughs confidently because now he's sure that the beast can't block all his strikes. His arrows are simply just way too fast for the Snake King. The smile on his face suddenly disappears when he sees the beast coming at him for round 3. The Snake King glares at him with its fiery eyes and then uses a trick that Shen didn't see coming. The giant snake releases a strange mist from its mouth and then blows it toward our hero. It only takes a few seconds for the whole place to be covered in the strange fog, and Shen quickly realizes that it's a poison mist. He covers his nose to avoid breathing it in, but he can only do that for so long. The system suddenly informs him that he's been poisoned and that he'll be losing 10 horsepower every second. The hero quickly checks his health and realizes that he'll need to restart in less than 3 minutes if things continue at this rate. To make matters worse, the Snake King keeps making itself extremely tall by going up and increasing the distance between them. This makes it more difficult for Shen to land a critical blow, so he realizes that the beast is trying to lower his hit rate and wear him down to death. Seeing that this is the case, the hero just smiles mischievously because he's got a plan. He calls out to the giant snake and accuses the monster of underestimating him. He then takes out his diamond-tipped arrow and prepares to launch a deadly shot. The Elf King bloodline is definitely imbued into this arrow, so it's covered in flames. As soon as he draws it back, Shen lets the arrow fly, and it makes direct contact with the target, taking out over 100 HP in the process. The Snake King screeches in pain and is forced to come down. It turns out that this last attack was the Elf King's blood arrow of life, which basically means that every third attack can be a critical hit no matter the opponent. Now that the giant snake has been brought down, Shen goes over to gloat a little. He figures that the beast is sweating now because it's clear that it can't withstand many of his hits. The snake just stares at him in silence, not sure what to do. The hero reveals that he used a critical hit on the weak spot and then a normal critical hit on the monsters, which doubled the damage. While he's talking, he remembers that he's also losing 10 horsepower every second. So he calculates how much time he has left and decides that 2 minutes is enough time to finish the giant Snake King off for good. Shen's health bar keeps getting shorter and shorter, from 1,300 to 1,200, and it just keeps going lower until it's at 999. When it gets to this point, our guy finally starts to feel the effect. It's starting to look like 2 minutes might not be enough time to vanquish the beast, and Shen is beginning to get frustrated. It turns out that the Snake King has been using its tail to attack him in a barrage, like a map-wide assault, ever since it realized that his critical hits are very strong. Shen hasn't even had any breathing space since then because the snake has been launching deadly attacks non-stop. Since then, he's forced to keep dodging all the strikes, but he finds it annoying that the Snake King really thinks that it can stop him from attacking back right now. Shen is just trying to create space for himself, and if truly the giant snake thinks it can stop him from landing a devastating hit, then he concludes that the monster must be really overestimating its speed. It doesn't take long for him to find the opening he's been looking for, so he creates some distance between them and unleashes another powerful arrow attack. The critical strike makes direct contact with the monster's belly and deducts a whopping 200 HP from the snake, leaving it with only 370 HP. Seeing this, Shen is glad that the damage is higher now and assumes that it might be due to the softness of the belly. Even though the neck is the weak point, it's still protected by scales. Now that he's got a new target, he concludes that this is how he's going to finish the creature off even faster. The hero gets in place and draws his arrow as he aims his bow at the belly of the beast, but his confidence drops a bit when he sees that the Snake King is laughing. Shen is so confused by this because he doesn't get what's going on, and while he's trying to figure it out, the snake quickly uses its tail to hit the wall of the cave. The impact sends shockwaves throughout the cave, causing the entire place to suddenly shake. The earth beneath Shen starts shifting as well, and he struggles to keep his balance. He attempts to launch another strike, but just then, he finds himself in a pit. The vibrations cause the ground to open up, and our hero falls into it. Looking up, he sees the snake still laughing at him. Realizing that the monster is trying to cause a collapse with the impact, Shen struggles. As if being stuck in the hole isn't bad enough, the Snake King starts spewing poison mist again, making life even harder for our hero. As you can imagine, Shen breathes in the second wave of the death mist, and the poison deepens, causing him to lose 20 HP per second. His HP drops to 600 and continues to fall. Shen looks around and realizes that this is pretty much a death sentence for beginners. The snake is creating a deep collapse to trap him, and with the poison getting worse, Shen feels like the monster is exploiting his lower jump height, forcing him to climb up only to meet more poison mist. Even if his HP were doubled, he might still not survive this. But just when it looks like it might be the end for our favorite ranger, he pulls out high-grade wolf meat from his inventory. He expected all of this from the beginner area boss, so he came prepared with a few tricks of his own. He takes a big bite out of the meat and smiles, excited to see what drops when he finally kills the Snake King. The meat restores 20 horsepower per second for 20 seconds and increases his speed by 10%. While it doesn't cure the poisoning, it counters the HP reduction, meaning that for the next 20 seconds, Shen won't lose any more health to the poison. This is the time frame that will decide his fate in the cave. With his speed increased, Shen rushes at the massive serpent, determined to end the fight before time runs out. He grabs his sword and goes for the kill. After leaping out of the hole, the Snake King keeps spewing more poison mist into the pit. But then, Shen suddenly emerges from the fog, greeting the beast. The boss panics, but this doesn't stop Shen from landing a deadly shot right in its eye. The Snake King falls to the ground, slithering away, but Shen is determined not to let it escape. He takes a finishing shot, landing another blow on its weak spot. The Snake King screeches in anger and turns around, yelling at Shen to go, but Shen came to kill it. So he launches yet another deadly arrow, which splits the last one in two and goes straight through the beast's neck. The killing blow takes out another 200 HP, finally slaying the Snake King. Upon victory, the poison status is removed. As a reward for being the first to kill the boss and achieving the server's kill, Shen earns a place on the glory board. His accomplishments are announced, and he is asked if he wants to hide his ID. Shen thinks for a moment, feeling that he's been hiding for too long, and decides not to stay anonymous. The system congratulates him again, confirming that his feats will be displayed for everyone to see. All the other players, even those who just started the game, suddenly see the announcement that someone named Ko-Ju Wong has killed the Snake King and earned 1,000 reputation points. Back in the Buffalo Zone, we see that the trio finally killed one of the horn beasts, and in their mind, it's definitely a boss because of how difficult it was for them. While they're busy messing around and teasing each other, the announcement pops up in front of them, and they instantly feel like clowns when they see that someone named Ko-Ju Wong just killed the Snake King and earned 1,000 reputation points. It's absolutely unbelievable to them. But we catch up with our boy who's reaping his rewards elsewhere. He's been bumped up to level S and definitely doesn't regret taking the big risk. It was totally worth it. Shen discovers that he has 30 unassigned attribute points and immediately shoves them into his agility skills for assassins and rangers. Agility practically increases everything else, and coupled with his current HP, he's practically a tank as far as he's concerned. This is a perfect start to his journey in the divine path. With his attributes assigned, he checks what other foodstuff the Snake King left behind. He's surprised to see yet another passive evolution reward, and this one turns silver coins into gold. He's really impressed to be earning gold coins in his loot as a beginner, because other players can only dream of this at this stage. Most can only boast copper and silver, so he's practically a tycoon in the game already. While he's still celebrating this, he sees the gold glowing all of a sudden, so he wonders if he triggered a second evolution already. As far as he's concerned, this is great, so he can't wait to see what other good stuff he'll get this time around. The story continues with our hero receiving yet another impressive reward. It's called the Crystal Coin, and it's a rare currency that has become extinct. The system reveals that it can be used to purchase special and unknown items from NPCs. And it just so happens that giving the crystal gems to NPCs can significantly increase their favorability. Shen King holds the coin in his hand, seemingly intrigued by it, and is surprised to receive such a rare item. He had heard about it in his previous life, but during all his time in the game, he never actually saw it with his own eyes. The glowing crystal continues to glow in his hands, and a smile creeps up on his face immediately because he's sure that it will definitely come in handy one day. He keeps the crystal coin somewhere safe, and just when he's about to exit the cave, the system reminds him to pick up all the other items that were dropped by the Snake King. Hearing this, Shen decides to open the backpack, and that's when all the items are revealed to him. The first thing on the list is a silver snake one-handed sword, which has a zigzag blade for some reason. The sword increases attack power by 28, strength by 7 points, and agility by 5 points. The class requirements for its use are either warrior or assassin, and the level requirement is 7. The sword has a special effect called Snake Kiss, which consumes 20 energy points when used and then adds snake venom to its attacks. Seeing that it's now a bow and arrows, Shen just clicks his tongue in disappointment. It's pretty much useless to him since he's a ranger, not a warrior or an assassin. but he figures that he could just sell it for money and earn a decent amount. The next item on the list is displayed all of a sudden, and the moment our hero sets his eyes on it, it's almost like love at first sight. Shen takes a look at the AA scale armor and is instantly certain that it's a nice item. This armor increases his defense stats by 25 and his HP by 200 points, along with a 10-point increase in his constitution. The minimum level required is level 10, and there's no class requirement on this one. Thankfully, as for the special effect on this armor, well, it has a scale shield, which grants a 300-point shield at the start of battle, and it has a 300 seconds cooldown time. Shen smiles at the screen, recalling that the normal quality Azure Scale armor didn't have any special effects in his previous life, besides some bonus attributes. However, this silver level 1 is a major upgrade and even has a shield effect, so he's really impressed. But then again, the problem here is that he can't use it until he gets to level 10. In this game, he doesn't even understand the point of that requirement and feels that such a condition is pretty much the same as not getting the reward right after beating the boss by himself. The hero ponders this for a moment and tries to come up with a way out of this restriction. Just then, he remembers that the reputation system just said that he was sent a silver chest along with his other rewards. Without wasting another second, Shen takes out the silver chest and instructs the system to open it up immediately. As the box slowly opens up, he can already see the blinding light shining from inside. So all he can do is hope that the game doesn't give him trash for other classes again. The silver chest finally blasts open with a lot of force and unleashes several arrows in the form of light. It's a really shocking display, but the system confirms that this is the legendary weapon known as the 7-star chain arrows. The item definitely consumes magic points each time it's used, but it's pretty worth it because it shoots 7 arrows continually at the target. Each arrow deals true damage equal to 1% of the target's maximum health. The cooldown time for this weapon is 60 seconds, and once again, the minimum level required is level 10. Shen King gets so excited when he sees that this weapon is practically godly and exclusive to archers. It's the perfect one for him, since he's a ranger. But then again, his excitement quickly turns to disappointment when he realizes that he can't use it until he reaches level 10. At the moment, it's almost as if he didn't receive any new weapons or skills today, but then looking at it from another angle, he realizes that his damage will increase significantly when he reaches level 10 in the game. Basically, what this tells him is that he needs to level up as quickly as he can. With all of this in mind, a new sense of determination washes over him, which will help him focus and grow faster. His thoughts are suddenly interrupted when he hears a noise coming from the darker part of the cave. He turns there, and that's when he clearly hears someone calling for help from within the darkness. As you can imagine, it's really unexpected since he thought he was the only one to ever reach here, so he's pretty reluctant to go check it out. He moves slowly and quietly to see who's there, and that's when he finds a terrified lady sitting there. Her name is Lady Gu, and she asks if he can help her, claiming that she's been hiding there to avoid the giant snake that used to run the cave. As soon as our boy sees the name, he recognizes her as the NPC in this cave. She's been rumored to give players hidden quests, so he's pretty familiar with her. In response, Shen informs her that he's taken care of the giant snake and assures her that she can come out of hiding now. This should be enough reason for her to jump up immediately and get out of the cave, but she can't because apparently her foot is injured. Her cheeks start turning red as she asks him if he can carry her out of the cave. At this point, it is pretty clear that this Lady Gu is definitely a seductress. Shen's cheeks turn red as well just thinking about carrying the woman, and he definitely didn't expect that request. But we already know that he's going to carry her out of the cave. The scene changes quickly, and it doesn't take long for him to reach the exit of the cave. Our guy walks out of the dark place with Lady Gu in his arms, and she thanks him for the help. Unsurprisingly, that's not the only thing she's doing. Lady Gu suddenly starts caressing Shen's face, claiming that she would have been dead if he didn't show up. The shy hero just tries his best to avoid making eye contact, but then she promises to take good care of him the next time they meet. This catches his attention. Perplexed, Shen immediately asks her what she means by next time, and before she can even say anything, he drops her on the floor. Lady Gu screams in shock as her back hits the ground, and then she quickly starts explaining herself. She reveals that she doesn't have much to repay him with at the moment besides her body. As far as she's concerned, she can pay the debt she owes him by sleeping with him, so she makes the offer right there. Thankfully, our hero isn't a simp, and he's way too focused on his mission in the game, so he quickly stops her and makes it crystal clear to her that he doesn't want to sleep with her. The look in his eyes confirms that Shen King is dead serious about this, but for some reason, Lady Gu starts laughing. The woman in the robe lets out a gentle laugh and then commends him for seeing right through her trick just now. Dees it very impressive that he didn't fall for it, so she slowly reveals the real reward she has for him. Lady Gu reaches into her robe and draws out a shiny knife called the Black Moonblade. It's a bronze-level weapon, but it can only be used by assassins. Seeing this, Shen just gets pissed once again, so he slaps the knife out of her hand, which leaves her startled. Our hero has played this game before, so he knows a lot more than she thinks. Shen knows that she's holding back on him, so he gives her one last chance to tell him about the hidden class she knows of. Of course, she's not willing to give it up, so she plays dumb and pretends like she doesn't know what he's talking about. As you can imagine, this pisses Shen off even more, so he decides to pull out the big guns. Since she's not going to hand over the hidden class by her own will, she's given him no other choice but to threaten her. He uses his special skill to see right through her and check what her weakness is. He quickly finds out that it's her daughter. Lady Gu has a 14-year-old daughter not too far away from here, so Shen informs the injured woman that he's off to find the little girl. As you can imagine, this threat is enough to leave Lady Gu terrified. She doesn't understand how this stranger knows so much about her, so she's really afraid. Desperate to protect her daughter from any harm, she finally gives in and agrees to play by his rules. Lady Gu has no other choice, so she claims that she'll help him find the path to the hidden class. Hearing that they're now on the same page, Shen just scolds her for lying at first, wondering why she didn't just say this from the start. They wouldn't have had to argue first. Surprisingly, the same lady who said that she couldn't because of her injured leg suddenly gets on her feet and starts some kind of slow dance ritual. She starts by placing her hands together and lifting them up in the air as she places one foot in front of the other. Her dance continues, and Shen just watches her go on speechlessly. Lady Gu spins around like a ballerina, and our guy patiently waits to see what she's up to. It doesn't take long for him to see it because, as her little dance ritual goes on, a huge magic circle appears on the ground, which leaves Shen pretty taken aback since he finds himself standing right in the middle of it. While our guy is still trying to figure out what's going on, she casually informs him that this little ritual going on is the hidden class trial. As long as he passes, he will get a hidden class. After explaining this to him, he thanks her for her disclosure. He admits that this little process is not bad, with a cheeky grin on his face. When Lady Gu notices this, she tells him not to be in such a hurry to thank her. As you can imagine, such a statement catches him off guard, so he turns around to ask her what she means by that. Before he can get serious with the little interrogation, a message from the system pops up to take his attention away. As if he wasn't already shocked enough, what's written on the page is even more horrifying. Our boy looks like he just saw a ghost, so we get to see the piece of information that got him so rattled. It turns out that he's been given the Shadow Hunter trial, which is a very difficult level class, and failure to pass the exam will mean permanent disqualification from the game. Shen is shocked that he's been taken directly to a difficult level all of a sudden, and the worst part is that he's only getting one chance. Seeing the conditions for this trial, Shen quickly calls out to Lady Gu, telling her that he's convinced there's a mistake here. He explains that he's only in level 7 and points out that he should be doing normal or beginner level tasks. As far as he's concerned, this difficult level trial will kill him. So he tries to get out of the magic circle, but that's when he realizes that his leg has been trapped by the seal. At this point, Shen begins to panic because he literally can't move, and it becomes very clear that he's in a lot of danger. When Lady Gu sees him struggling to get out of the trap, she reveals that she did this to him for threatening to lay his hands on her daughter. For that, she's going to make sure that this will be his end. This is about when Shen sees that Lady Gu has absolutely zero favorability for him. He's surprised to see that the favorability interface even popped up in the first place, but this makes him realize that the best way to get out of the trap would be to brush up her favorability for him first. While he's still thinking about this, the portal in the magic seal starts opening even wider, and this causes him to get sucked in even faster. Seeing this, it's starting to look like there might really be no way out of this very tight situation. While our guy is struggling and trying not to get sucked in, Lady Gu casually watches from a distance, telling him that whether he passes the trial or not depends on his skills. By the time she says this, the hero has already been sucked in so much that all we can see sticking out of the portal is his head. Even at that, he refuses to give up hope, so he warns Lady Gu not to underestimate him. Shen vows to go after her daughter the second he comes out of the trial, but before he can say anything else, he gets sucked in completely, and Lady Gu just stands there, not knowing if she should be relieved or if she should be even more afraid now. The scene shifts to somewhere else where we see the magic portal floating high up in the night sky. In the blink of an eye, a powerful flash of light shoots out of the magic seal like a bolt of lightning down to the ground. Shen sticks a superhero landing, which sends all the little critters around running to safety. As soon as he makes contact with the ground, He realizes that the entire place is filled with sand. He starts coughing all of a sudden, wondering where the hell he's been brought to. It appears that he's been transported to some kind of desert, and he certainly isn't familiar with the place. While he's trying to figure out where he is, the system drops another message on the screen. He's informed that his difficult Shadow Hunter trial is about to begin. He's also reminded that failure to pass the trial will result in permanent disqualification from the game. Seeing this message once again makes him realize just how strict the assignment is. From the look of things, it's either he dies or passes the trial. With this in mind, he starts thinking of a plan, and then all of a sudden, something starts coming out of the sand. He finds it suspicious, so he takes a closer look, wondering what the pointy stuff is. At first, it just looks like a tiny sharp object, but then all of a sudden, the rest of the structure shoots out of the sand from beneath him. At this point, it's pretty obvious that the trial has begun. The massive teeth surround Shen, and then the rest of the monster reveals itself. Our hero takes a big leap to avoid getting swallowed whole by the giant worm, and then he figures that this creature must be the trial enemy that he has to face. The gigantic death worm is extremely fast and hungry for blood, so Shen needs to act quickly before the beast can launch another attack at him. He quickly activates his weakness detection skill. Our boy powers up the skill, desperately hoping to get answers before the death worm can get to him. As the deadly maggot shoots in and out of the sand to reach him, the results from his little scan get back. Shen discovers that this creature is actually a ground sandworm. It's an elite monster currently at level 5 with an attack power of 45, defense stats at 30, health points at 2,000, and a movement speed of 11. However, the most important thing here is its weakness, which is the center of its mouth. Seeing all of this, Shen takes out his bow and draws an arrow. Even though the monster isn't exactly a high-level monster, he can see that it's tough and has thick skin. He aims right for the deathworm's mouth and then shoots the arrow, confident that this will do the job. The arrow flies with insane speed and lands right in the center of the worm's mouth. This attack does a great deal of damage, deducting 130 health points in one go. Seeing this, Shen becomes a lot more confident that he can win against this beast. After being around the deathworm for only a few seconds, our hero has already figured out that the monster becomes quite clumsy whenever it comes out of the sand. Since that's the case, he is certain that he can take out the beast if he's able to hit the mouth with all his arrows. That first strike seems to have really pissed off the monster, so it goes up into the sky with a deadly aura surrounding it. The sandworm reaches the sky and then shoots right back down like a missile. Our hero sees it coming right back at him and finds this amusing. Shen feels that the worm must be an idiot because it still dares to charge at him head-on. With a confident grin on his face, he braces himself for the incoming attack. The deathworm crashes a few feet away from Shen and then burrows into the ground with unbelievable speed. The impact is really terrifying, and our guy realizes that he'll definitely be shattered to pieces if he ends up getting hit. The dust clears after a few seconds, and Shen sees the huge hole in the ground. He finds it really confusing and wonders why the monster suddenly dived down into the sand. It's pretty quiet all of a sudden, so he's on high alert. All of a sudden, he notices the sand moving and turns to take a closer look. Just as he's probably thinking, the deathworm is actually the one responsible for this, so he gets pretty worried. Shen knows that this is a troublesome situation because the monster is too deep underground, and it's too difficult to track its movement from the surface. From the look of things, our guy feels that the monster is way too agile underground. At this rate, it means that he'll have less than a second to react when the creature finally shoots back up to the surface. Because of this, he's not confident that he'll be able to dodge every attack that gets thrown at him. The deathworm seems to be more efficient in this area since it can burrow in and out with ease. Shen feels that he needs to find some hard surface to stand on. This way, he can minimize his chances of getting ambushed. With this in mind, he starts looking around frantically, hoping to find some kind of hard rock or anything like that nearby. His face lights up when he suddenly finds a tall rocky structure in the distance. It's a tall pillar with some strange symbols inscribed on it, but right now, he doesn't really care about any of that. He starts running toward the pillar immediately, and with each determined stride, he gets closer to safety. Unfortunately, he's not the only one moving in that direction, and he quickly finds out when he sees the deathworm coming out of the sand again. He's surprised that the massive monster emerged again and wonders if the beast finally wants to engage in a fair fight. As the deathworm towers up to the clouds, our boy takes out his bow again and braces himself for another round. The massive worm is using the same attack it did the first time, so he figures that it's better to strike first this time around. Seeing that the creature is still a bit distracted, he unleashes a few blows on it. These 2 arrows deal a whole lot of damage, deducting a total of 390 health points from the monster. This is a really good sign, and our boy is happy to see that he's making some progress. Even though the death worm is disgusting, he figures that taking it down would be really easy as long as he's able to avoid getting ambushed. Shen leaps into the air once again and draws his arrow to launch another strike. Unfortunately, this time around, he doesn't get a chance to make the shot because the sandworm retaliates with a powerful blast from its mouth. The creature spits a big chunk of sand at our hero, and Shen quickly covers his face to avoid getting hit. He can see that the beast is trying to catch him off guard while he's in the air. Even though he covers his face, the force from the sandblast is still way too much to contain. He takes some damage and loses 52 HP. To make matters worse, this blast reduces his vision by 50%. At the same time, his attack accuracy also decreases by 30%. Thankfully, these effects only last for 10 seconds, but for the next 10 seconds, our boy is forced to fight with blurred vision. He turns around the moment he's hit and curses at the giant maggot. Our hero can't even see his hands properly, so it becomes clear that this blinding effect is a lot stronger than he imagined it would be. Shen is pretty much a sitting duck at this point, because he won't be able to protect himself at all if the deathworm attacks him now. Sure enough, the massive monster is right behind him already, and he can sense it. He decides that he needs to reach the stone pillar as quickly as possible. The hero gets back on his feet, still unable to open his eyes properly, but he turns around to see the maggot coming at him once again. The deathworm burrows into the ground a few feet away from him, and the impact sends him flying. Thankfully, the force from the collision sends him in the direction he was hoping for. Shen is slammed into the pillar, and even though he's in a lot of pain, he can't help but smile because he took a gamble that worked out well. He still can't see properly, so he has to rely on his ears for the next couple of seconds. From the sound that he just heard, he wonders if it just dived underground again. He's not sure, so he has to listen carefully. Feeling that his current opponent is a real pain in the butt, Shen acknowledges the deathworm's strengths. It can burrow into the ground at will and has the ability to blind its targets. The deathworm is a tough nut for sure, but Shen still feels sorry for it because its weakness is too obvious. Even despite having a really strong attack power, the hero falls back to the ground and places his hands on the floor. From the previous arrows he shot that didn't miss, and the two attacks that were all sneak attacks from below, Shen is confident that he knows exactly how to take down this creature. The deathworm's attacks are monotonous, so he feels that dealing with it will be like playing with a monkey once he's figured out the pattern. Just then, the blinding effect finally expires, and our boy can see clearly again. Now that he's got his vision back, he draws his arrow once again, feeling that it's time to counterattack. Standing right in front of the stone pillar, he's confident that he can't be ambushed from behind. So he calls out to the giant insect to come meet its end. Just then, the earth in front of him starts rumbling, and he immediately knows that it's the deathworm coming from down there. He lets out a cheeky laugh because his plan is coming together. And then, sure enough, the big maggot shoots out of the ground right in front of him. At this point, Shen aims his arrow to take a clean shot, confirming that the stupid bug really has a one-track mind. The deathworm unleashes the sand spit move a second time, but our boy is prepared for it now. He quickly evades the blast to avoid being blinded again, and then gloats about how he can now change direction mid-air by using the stone pillar as support. This way, he's able to dodge the blast and also unleash a powerful arrow strike from the air with ease. The arrow shoots out and lands right in the mouth of the deathworm once again. This single shot deducts 260 horsepower in one go. The big slug is pretty shaken up by this one, so it pauses its attacks for a bit, and Shen uses this opportunity to get back to the ground. The ranger teases the big maggot at this point, wondering why it's no longer attacking him. In his mind, these are the only two skills that the sandworm has, and if that's really the case, then there's no doubt that he'll be leaving here with the creature's severed head. Shen's confidence shoots up at this point, so he charges into the sky with his weapon, hoping to overwhelm the beast and finish it off for good. Shen makes his way right up to the maggot's mouth, and this time around he's practically hovering a few feet away from its face. The worm attempts to blast him with sand again, but he just dodges it and shoots another deadly arrow into its mouth. This blast takes away 130 health points from the big slug, but Shen King isn't done yet. He follows up with 3 similar blasts, which all end up in the maggot's mouth. The 3 blasts take out a total of 520 health points, and that's a great deal from a monster that's already been taking really big hits all this time. At this point, the sandworm is one good strike away from dying, and Shen King knows this all too well. He takes out one more arrow and starts aiming once again so that he can unleash the final strike. This time around, the big maggot is the sitting duck because it just waits there, doing nothing, almost as if it knows what's about to happen. Our boy gets his aim right and then unleashes the shot, which takes out the last 130 horsepower left in the monster. Right after this strike, the system sends a message confirming that the sandworm is dead, and as you'd expect, his rewards start rolling in immediately. First, Shen is bumped up to level 8 in an instant, and then he receives the copper coins, which immediately evolve into 10 silver coins. Besides that, he also receives some other items, which include bronze-quality sand boots that cannot be upgraded. These boots have a special effect which increases the user's movement speed in sandy areas by 10 points. Unfortunately, our hero isn't too impressed with these rewards. In fact, he's convinced that they're trash and wonders why the system would give him stuff like that. Shen looks over at the massive corpse lying in front of him and complains about how this is all the Deathworm could give him after being so big. He is so pissed that he feels like stomping on the maggot a few more times. The only reason he doesn't is because the experience points he got were pretty decent. All of a sudden, the characters on the stone pillar start glowing, and of course the hero wonders why this is happening. Now that there's no pressure anymore, he takes a closer look at the inscriptions and notices that there are 8 identical words on the pillar, but only the one at the bottom is glowing. Seeing this, a mischievous look creeps up on his face as he comes up with a theory to explain what's going on with the pillar. Before he can even reveal what he's thinking, several identical sandworms shoot out of the ground. When he sees this, he sighs in exhaustion because it's just as he thought. Apparently, those symbols on the pillar represent the 8 deadly sandworms he has to face during this trial. This time it's a lot tougher because he has to fight the remaining 7 at the same time. And since this is the case, he figures that the only way to clear this level is by killing every single one of them. Thankfully, he now knows exactly how to deal with them, so he's not too bothered by them. Shen King quickly makes his way to the top of the pillar and waits for the sandworms to come at him. While he's up there, he gets a good view of the whole desert and admits that this place would have been a really good place for leveling up if it wasn't for the sandworms living there. As much as he likes the place, he knows better than to stay on the ground because every step on the sandy surface could bring 7 big bugs out from all directions. No matter how fast or agile he thinks he is, Shen knows that he definitely cannot handle that many enemies at the same time. So for now, it's safer to stay right at the top of the pillar where the risk of getting ambushed is a lot lower. From his experience with the first one, he can confidently say that the sandworms have been attacking based on 6 vibrations from the ground. With this in mind, the hero wonders how he can create ground vibrations from a safe distance. As such, he considers shooting an arrow directly at the ground, feeling that the impact might be enough to alert multiple bugs at the same time. Unfortunately, he's not sure this is the best idea, because if all the deathworms emerge at the same time, the shockwaves they create might cause the only safe spot to get destroyed as well. As such, the ranger decides that he needs to lure the deathworms out of their hiding places one by one, so that he can kill them one after the other. In his mind, this is the best way to handle the situation, so he smiles confidently, feeling that he's come up with a brilliant idea to pass the trial. Now that Chen has a plan, the next thing he does is open his inventory to get all the stuff he needs for this. For some reason, he needs coins, and since copper coins are too light, he decides that the silver coins in his chest will suffice. Shen takes out 8 silver coins, and after feeling them, he concludes that the weight is just right. The hero tosses the coins down to the floor right in front of the stone pillar, feeling confident that his plan is going to work. Sure enough, the coins hit the sand, and the vibrations from the trigger the first deathworm to shoot out of the ground. The massive maggot blasts itself from under the sand, just like the first one, and Shen prepares to unleash a deadly strike on it. The hero draws another arrow and aims at the beast as it goes up to the sky. The Elf King Bloodlight appears to be with him on this one, which means that the arrowed attack is going to be really powerful. Right before losing the arrow, he admits that this feels like a really extravagant way to fight. With this thought still in mind, he lets go of the flaming arrow, which hits the deathworm in the side. The strike does some damage, but it's not significant because only 35 health points are taken away from the sandworm. Seeing this, the hero analyzes the situation. He feels that the position of the worm is safe, but the problem is the angle, which makes it impossible for him to hit the weak spot from where he is. Shen feels that the slug's defense must be really high, since each arrow only does 35 points of damage. For other players in the game, this would probably be a really big problem, but for our guy, it really doesn't matter too much. Another cocky smirk appears on Shen's face, claiming that this won't be a problem for him because he's got enough money to handle the situation. Our guy says this and then reaches into his inventory again to take out some more silver coins. We see a huge explosion rocking the desert. The blast is so powerful that it sends shark waves all over the place. The scene shifts at this point, and 4 hours later we see that Shen King is done dealing with the big slugs. He heaves a sigh of relief as he sits on top of the tall pillar, feeling really good that he's finally done. He's probably very exhausted at this point, but when he looks down at the multiple sandworm corpses lying all in the sand, a sense of accomplishment washes over him. He takes another look and is surprised all of a sudden. Just then, the system gives him another notification revealing that he's been bumped up from level 8 to level 10. Besides that, he also has 15 attribute points unassigned. He's also earned a total of 80 silver coins from his big victory in the desert. His mana has also increased by 30 points, along with his health points, which have gone up by 330 points. Shen is surprised that he's reached level 10 already. He didn't even realize it, so he concludes that these big bugs give a lot of experience points. The archer is also taken aback by the unassigned attribute points he's been awarded, and this reminds him of something. Shen suddenly opens his status window, which displays his personal details. His health points are now up to 2,190. His mana is at 80, attack at 65, agility is up to 39, spirit still pretty low at 5, defense at 8, 0 luck still, and 2 points in charm. Seeing all of this, Shen concludes that the chances of getting a good drop has been very low for him. He still hasn't gotten anything mind-blowing in his rewards, so he's starting to think that it might be due to his really low luck stats. The luck is at 0, and he's hoping that this can change, so he assigns the 15 attribute points he just got to his luck. Just like that, he receives a message from the system confirming that his luck has increased to 15, and this leads to a few other boosts. This results in his hit rate going up to 81, and his evasion stats increase to 16. His face brightens up when he sees this because he realizes that these 2 other stats are related to luck. While he's still celebrating this one, the system drops a message revealing that another passive evolution is about to begin. This is also due to the increase in his luck, so he can't help getting really excited. It appears that the luck skill is a lot more useful than he imagined. Anyway, he gets right to activating the passive evolution he was just given. He shoots a blast at the giant slug corpses, and as the evolution begins, he thinks about how he didn't have money to spend on upgrades in his previous life. Back then, his damage and health were very low, which made survival very difficult. To survive, he had to put all his scarce attributes into the attack and health, which meant that he missed out on many things like this. Rue Purple Beam continues to radiate from the sandworm core, and when Shen sees this, he gets even more excited because he knows that purple light represents a legendary item drop. With so much enthusiasm, he jumps down from the pillar and rushes toward the dead maggot, anxious to see what kind of good stuff is up for grabs. When he gets to the corpse, he receives a message from the system confirming that he just got a legendary sand escape as a reward. This skill allows the user to move freely through sand to conceal themselves just like the deathworms. Movement speed in the sand is 12, and another limitation is that the user can't pass through hard ground. The mon cost for this skill is 0, and the required class is unlimited. Just like the level, all of this sounds great, but as you can imagine, the skill can only be used in desert terrain. Unfortunately, unsurprisingly, Shen King still isn't impressed by this, and he begins to think that the legendary skill must be some kind of joke or something. As far as he's concerned, it's really unimpressive, but then again, he feels that it might be useful for survival or surprise attacks. So, with this in mind, he figures that it won't be such a bad idea to learn the skill, and this sets him back than silver coins. Just like that, our boy learns the same escape skill, so he takes his mind back to the bigger issues at hand. Shen is now on level 10, so this means that he can now use the skill from the previous Syl chest he got after killing the Snake King. It's the 7-star arrow skill, and considering how excited he was when he first saw it, he doesn't waste another second before learning the skill. It costs him 20 silver coins, but he definitely doesn't mind. After learning the 7-star arrow skill, he goes on to the next thing on his bucket list, which is the silver-level blue armor he also got for defeating the snake boss. The system asks if he'd like to equip it, and he does just that. After equipping the armor, he takes a look at it and is impressed by the significant boost he got. Our hero is looking really sharp all of a sudden, and he can feel it too, claiming that he's probably the highest level player on the server at this point. After going through a really cool upgrade, the hero thinks about what other things he probably needs to handle. Shen looks around and immediately spots the pillar, which is now really bright because all the words inscribed on it are glowing. They've all lit up, which confirms that the monsters are all dead. He's also taken all the rewards by digging through the drops that were left behind. He's practically done everything he needs to do here, so he doesn't get why he's still stuck in the desert. Nothing else is happening, so he begins to freak out, wondering what's going on because the trial should be over by now. Or that's what he thought. All of a sudden, the ground starts rumbling, and our guy figures that it's an earthquake. But that's not exactly the case. Just then, the tall pillar suddenly starts transforming into something else. The pillar opens up like a gate leading to somewhere else. The other side of the gate is glowing brightly, and since Shen doesn't know where else to go, he starts walking toward it. Our boy gets to the gate and sees a set of stairs leading down into the place. The energy from inside is so evident, so he feels that the true reward for passing the trial must be in there. It's definitely a long staircase, but the ranger doesn't mind going the distance at this point. He starts smiling, feeling that he's in for a real treat. To him, this is perfect timing to try out new skills and equipment. Just when he's about to start his beautiful journey to the treasure down there, he hears his sister calling out to him. Shen recognizes the voice to be Zot Tong's, but he probably doesn't want to believe it because he's about to discover some really cool rewards. The innocent young girl calls out to him from the real world, telling him that it's time for him to eat. Tong is really excited for some reason, so much so that she climbs on the gaming pod with a pot of food, telling Pren that she made his favorite pickled egg and lean meat porridge. Because of how close the voice is, he figures that she must have climbed on top of the pod, so he tells her to quickly get down, warning that she might get seriously hurt if she falls from that height. While he's trying to get his sister to behave, the system senses that someone is calling him, so it asks if Shen wants to exit the game at the moment. The hero is way too engrossed, so he quickly tells the system that he wants to keep playing. He already knows that leaving before clearing the level will permanently prevent him from obtaining the hidden class, so he refuses to quit the game. Since he's definitely not leaving yet, he tells Tong to stop messing around, claiming that he doesn't have the time right now. In response, Zot Tong informs him that he's been playing for the past 8 hours and reminds him that he's still in the recovery stage. She then threatens to get mad at him if he continues acting this way. Unfortunately, the threat doesn't seem to do anything to the big brother because he just yells at her to behave, asking her not to disturb him. As you can imagine, the innocent, doting sister doesn't appreciate his tone, so she just huffs in annoyance and decides to react. She forcefully drops the plate of food on the side of his gaming pod and then storms out, claiming that she doesn't care about him anymore. As much as she wants to be mad at him, she can't help but feel sorry for him. Tong wonders how things turned out this way, and she desperately wishes that she could make him get better. The caring girl feels really bad because of how he spoke to her, and Shen can sense this from her tone, so he apologizes to her, feeling quite guilty. But then again, he has a more urgent mission to attend to, so he hopes she can be more patient and wait until her big brother becomes stronger. The hero already knows exactly what the hidden class is. It's the Phantom Hunter, and now he's so close to getting it. So he walks down the long flight of stairs toward the source of energy brimming below. Our hero gets to the large portal and shoves his hand in first before going in with the rest of his body. He gets to the other side in the blink of an eye, and we see that it's another cave. The huge cave gives off a really ominous vibe, and the moment Shen arrives, the system warns him to be very cautious because this area is extremely dangerous. Seeing the message, the ranger figures that this must be where the real boss of the trial is. This is probably why the trial didn't end after he killed the giant sandworms. As soon as this thought crosses his mind, yet another massive creature shoots out of the hard ground. This beast is definitely on another level from the others because it can penetrate hard surfaces too. It's also a lot bigger, so Shen is horrified when he sees that it's a giant crab monster. The hero is so bewildered that he doesn't even believe his eyes for a second. It's literally a crab in the desert, and judging by its size, he's going to have a really hard time trying to defeat it. The system helps him make some sense of it by revealing that this is a gold-level boss. It's the Sand King with an attack of 200 points. It's a level 15 monster and has a defense of 80 points. Its health is a whopping 6,000, and it also has the special ability to create sandstorms. As you'd expect, the defense and health of the enemy leave Shen in disbelief because they're absolutely ridiculous. He can't mess around or gamble unnecessarily with a creature like this, so he quickly activates his weakness detection skill to find the monster's weak spot. Unfortunately, for the first time ever, he doesn't find a weakness. Shen King doesn't find a weakness in this powerful opponent, and of course, this makes him really confused.